Our scripture readings tonight first begin with some words from the Proverbs. Speak out for those who cannot speak, for the rights of all the destitute. Speak out, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. And then a word from Matthew. The children were being brought to Jesus in order that he might lay his hands on them and pray. The disciples spoke sternly to those who brought them, but Jesus said, "Let the children come to me and do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of heaven belongs." He laid his hands on them and went on his way.
This time I want to invite Michelle Erickson, the Executive Director of the Abused Adult Resource Center, to come and share a few words with us about their work, and we are grateful for the tie-in with you being present with us this evening as we think about the importance of and the good news of caring for the vulnerable in our community and our world. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the invite. I have a little nostalgia coming in because we used to do our Take Back the Night event here in October. We did it here for many years, and so I hadn't been in McCabe. We used to have our task force meetings out there, so I hadn't been in here for a while, so it's nice to be back here. Again, like Pastor Lou read that verse, and I'll just read it again really quick, but speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. It's a short passage, it's direct, and honestly, it's probably a little uncomfortable for some people, because it asks something of us. It's not just to believe the right things, but to do something with them. When we hear those who cannot speak for themselves, it's easy to think of that as a broad idea, but in reality, it's very specific. It's people experiencing domestic violence. It's survivors of sexual assault. It's victims of human trafficking. And the truth is, these are people who do have voices, but most of the time their voices are buried under fear, control, shame, or danger. Sometimes speaking up isn't safe, and sometimes it doesn't feel possible. And sometimes when people do speak up, they aren't believed. And that's where this verse meets us, the speak up portion. Not in a loud, performative way, not in a way that centers us as the heroes saving the day, but in real, everyday ways that actually make a difference. Sometimes speaking up looks like listening, without judgment, without trying to fix, without questioning someone's story. Sometimes it looks like using your voice, calling out harmful comments, challenging the idea that abuse is a private matter, or refusing to laugh off something that minimizes harm. And sometimes it looks like supporting the work, because there are people and organizations doing this every day, providing safety, advocacy, and resources for those who need it the most. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you have to be an expert to make a difference. And you don't. You just have to be willing to care and to act on that care. Not perfectly, not every day, just intentionally when you can. In my work at ARC, I've seen something over and over again. The moment that changes things for someone isn't always the moment everything is fixed. It's the moment someone says, "I believe you, I'm here, and you're not alone." That's what speaking up can look like. It's not always big, but it's always powerful. And if I can be honest, these topics are heavy. They're not the things we naturally want to sit with on a Wednesday evening or any day of the week, but they matter, because behind every statistic is a person, and behind every person is a story that deserves dignity, safety, and to be heard. So if we take anything from this verse today, I think it's this: we don't have to do everything, but we are called to do something. Maybe that's learning more, maybe it's supporting a local agency, maybe it's simply becoming someone safe that another person can talk to. Because when we choose to speak up and we choose to see people, to listen, to care, we're not just responding to a need. We're reflecting the kind of compassion and justice that this world needs more of. I think that ARC has been around for 50 years. This is our 50th year this year. I have been there for 20 of those years. I started out as an advocate and in the transitional housing program, and I became very passionate not only about helping victims, but also helping people find affordable and available housing. And that has just continued to unfortunately get worse over the last 20 years. But it's definitely a part of my soul after 20 years. And I'm very involved with the local homeless coalition, with some of the other agencies that have been here, or going to be here this month. We tend to help about 1,000 victims every year. We serve the 7-county area, including Standing Rock. And we provide everything from crisis intervention from the moment they walk in the door, to emergency shelter, transitional shelter, housing programs in the community, and then getting people into permanent housing. And along with that, we're there for emotional support. We have a safety plan with people, help them get back to maybe their home if they were brought here in a trafficking situation. We really have a lot of relationships with the community to try to figure out whatever people need, how can we make it happen for them. We all work under budgets and grants and things like that, but it's really important for us to try to fill the gaps that other places don't have. Last year, we sheltered in our emergency shelter and our transitional shelter. We sheltered 156 adults and 71 children. In our housing programs in the community, we had another 39 adults and 33 kids. That's 400 people in this community that we were able to safely house for different spurts of time. And I know when I first started, we'd have somebody come to the shelter and then they'd leave 2 days later and go back to their situation. I was devastated. But we were able to keep them safe for the 2 days they were with us. And so I think that's like, when we were talking about safety with the kids too, is like, that's what's important, is making people in our community make sure they know that they're safe and they have a place to go to find that safety. We also are available 24/7. So we have an emergency hotline. People come to us, show up at our office, they find me on Facebook, they will call through a friend or have somebody reach out, and so we're always available. And I think that's another important thing. A lot of places, shelters don't have emergency 24-hour hotlines, and we do. And I think that's the way that a lot of people get to us, is middle of the night, they decide they want to get out, they got to call somebody. Who are they going to call? Either the police or us. And a lot of the time they don't want to be involved with the police at first. So we have good working relationships with everybody in the community. I think the biggest issue is that people can give something, whether it's time, money, donations of hygiene supplies or food. All of that helps. Some of you might be familiar with the Seeds of Hope thrift store. That's our store. Take all your stuff there. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to operate a lot of the programs we have, because all of that, everything's sold there. All that money goes back into keeping our programs running. It's about 30% of our budget, which is huge. And it's just, the community support is amazing for us. So if there's anything that you guys have questions about, you can sure ask me now or after. But I appreciate having the opportunity to be here and talk with you about AARC.
Michelle, since you said we could ask a question, I have a question. Do you do any education in the schools or anything to kind of help educate people about, when they're young, about treating one another, and then what to do if something bad happens to you?
Yeah, we were in the schools prior to COVID. After COVID, the schools were a little more particular about what they wanted in there, and we haven't managed to get back in so much. We do a lot in Standing Rock. We do a lot in the schools down there, and a lot of it is cyclical. I have a hard time with that word, but kids grow up in that, they think it's okay, and then they end up being adults that are abusing their partners and grandparents and whatever. So when the kids are with us in the shelters, we have a full-time child advocate that makes sure they get into whatever programming they need to, counseling, making sure that they're understanding that it's not okay. I have one quick story. I have one of my first clients, she came to our shelter, and her kids were 2 boys that were 3 and 4 years old. And all they had known for those 3-4 years was violence, and bad violence. And we have a huge playroom, and it was built over an outdoor pool, so it's a huge playroom. The kids were in there playing, and we had staff in there. And at one point, the staff had turned to help another child, and when they turned back around, the 4-year-old had the curtain pull string wrapped around his brother's neck and was telling him that he needed to shut up. Those are the things that like keep us doing this job. We don't want those kids to be in those situations. We want them to be productive adults and not be harmful to anybody else. I had kept in touch with that person for years. A few years ago, her older one was doing amazing. He had gotten into Job Corps in my aunt done really well and had a job and car and all that. The other one, not so much. He went down a different path and was in and out of jail. But it's those kind of things that like remind us why we do the things we do. We want to impact as many people as we can and help them get out of those situations. Yeah. I will mention too, and I don't want to forget this, but a couple years ago, Lutheran Social Services closed, and they were doing the offender intervention programs. And it's a 6-month program. Offenders are court-ordered to go to it when they're convicted of domestic violence crimes. And when they closed, it left those programs hanging. And a lot of people were against, like a lot of our programs were saying, no, we're here for victims. But in my eyes, I felt like it was another way to reduce violence, to be able to help the offenders. And so we started that in 23, I think we started 22, with one class. We're running 3 groups now, and great success coming out of there too. Men that are coming back to the group and helping mentor other men that are coming into that group, fresh out of jail and things like that. And so we're just trying to do the best we can and have people not be bad people. So.
Anybody else have a burning question? Thank you very much, Michelle, for sharing this information with us. And I told her when we were visiting briefly before the service, because I've never met anybody from this organization, and they were a great help to us in December when we needed to support someone who was in a crisis situation. And they were amazing, and I